I never considered myself a particularly adventurous person. My life had always been a carefully balanced routine: wake up, go to work at the small marketing firm downtown, come home, and spend the evenings scrolling through social media or playing video games. Yet even in the monotony, there was a secret corner of my life that brought me a thrill I could never share openly. A part of me that loved experimenting with femininity, the delicate curves of clothing, the softness of makeup against my skin, the subtle sway of high heels that made me feel different. It wasn't something I did every day. In fact, most weeks went by without me indulging in this secret. But when I did, I felt a surge of excitement mixed with vulnerability. Cross-dressing wasn't just an escape. It was a way to explore parts of myself I rarely let anyone see. And for years, I had kept it hidden from friends, hidden from co-workers, hidden from everyone except me. That all changed when Isabella entered my life. She was vibrant, unpredictable, and somehow intuitively aware of things I barely understood about myself. We met at a mutual friend's party, and there was an immediate spark, a connection that felt electric and dangerous all at once. Isabella was magnetic, with sharp eyes that seemed to look through me, catching even the smallest hint of hesitation or concealment. I had fallen for her, completely and irrevocably, and in the process, I had found myself more willing to embrace the parts of me I had always hidden. She had a playful side, too, a mischievous streak that often left me unsure if I was being tested or adored. And it was that side that led to the day everything changed. It began one quiet Friday evening. I was curled up on the couch in our shared apartment, the faint hum of the city outside blending with the low thrum of music playing from my phone. Isabella was out running errands, or so I thought. The apartment was warm and familiar, but there was a strange tension in the air, as if something unseen was waiting to disrupt the ordinary. I hadn't expected her to return so early. The soft click of the front door unlocked made my pulse quicken, but nothing could have prepared me for what came next. She walked in carrying a small, intricately carved box, almost like a jewelry case, and her eyes sparkled with a mix of pride and mischief. "What's that?" I asked cautiously, my curiosity piqued. Isabella set the box on the kitchen counter, lifting the lid with a flourish. Inside lay a collection of objects that looked straight out of a storybook: candles, tiny vials filled with colorful liquids, and a bundle of herbs tied neatly with golden thread. My brow furrowed. Is this some kind of ritual? She laughed, a light, playful sound that made my heart skip. Something like that, she said, leaning closer. I hired a spellcaster. The words struck me like lightning. A spellcaster. I repeated, my voice tinged with disbelief. Isabella, what are you talking about? She winked, her grin teasing. I wanted to make you my perfect girl. For a moment, I thought she was joking. I laughed nervously, brushing a hand through my hair. Perfect girl? You mean, you want me to cross-dress more often? She shook her head. No, silly. Something stronger than that. Something permanent. My stomach lurched. Permanent. My secret life, my private explorations, had always been mine alone. The thought that Isabella might now involve a spellcaster, someone who could make real, irreversible changes, sent a chill down my spine. Part of me panicked at the idea, but another part, the part that had always longed for someone to accept and even encourage this side of me, couldn't help feeling a spark of curiosity. Alex, she said softly, her eyes locking onto mine, I know you've always wanted to explore this side of yourself fully. I want to help you. Trust me. I swallowed hard. Her words were sincere, yet they carried an edge of mischief I couldn't ignore. I had never felt more torn, between fear of losing control over my own body and identity, and the tantalizing promise of becoming someone entirely new, yet entirely me. Isabella opened the box further, revealing a small scroll, neatly inscribed with symbols I didn't recognize. It's simple, she said, her voice lowering conspiratorially. The spellcaster said it would be safe. All you have to do is follow the instructions, and you'll become exactly how I imagine you. I stared at the scroll, my hands trembling slightly. The smell of herbs and candle wax filled the kitchen, creating a strange, almost intoxicating atmosphere. This was not just a prank or a playful suggestion, it was a crossing of boundaries I had never dared approach. I glanced at Isabella, her expression open and expectant, and my resolve faltered. The fear remained, sharp and insistent, but the excitement, the thrill of finally embracing this transformation, of stepping fully into a world I had only glimpsed, was stronger. What if it works? I whispered, my voice barely audible. She smiled, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. Then you'll see what it feels like to be completely me, completely perfect, and completely yours. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. The spell, the box, the promise of transformation. It all whirled in my mind, a dizzying mix of fear, anticipation, and desire. I thought about the first time I had worn heels alone in my room, the nights spent experimenting with lipstick and eyeliner, the thrill of pretending to be someone else. And now, Isabella wanted to make that someone else a reality, not just in secret, but in a way that couldn't be undone. The thought should have terrified me. And in a way, it did. But another, deeper part of me, the part one had always hidden, was trembling with anticipation. Tomorrow, everything would change. And I realized that, whether I wanted it or not, my life as Alex the man, Alex the secret crossdresser, was about to collide with a reality I had never imagined. And with that, the first thread of suspense took hold. The next morning, the apartment felt different. Sunlight streamed through the blinds, but it wasn't the warm, familiar light I had grown used to. It seemed sharper, more insistent, as if it knew something momentous was about to happen. The spellcaster's tools, the candles, herbs, and scroll, sat on the counter like silent witnesses, their presence filling the kitchen with a heady scent that made my chest tighten. Isabella was already awake, her hair tousled from sleep, eyes sparkling with mischief and anticipation. "Morning, beautiful," she said, a teasing lilt in her voice. "Ready for your transformation?" I swallowed hard, trying to steady the tremor in my hands. The word transformation felt weighty, loaded with consequences I wasn't entirely sure I was ready for. And yet, there was no backing out now. Part of me, a part one had never dared acknowledge fully, was curious, excited, even a little eager. She guided me to the living room, where a soft rug had been laid out with all the spellcaster's items arranged neatly. Candles flickered despite the daylight, casting playful shadows across the walls. "Just follow the instructions," she said softly, holding my hands. Her touch sent an unexpected shiver down my spine. "It's just a spell. Nothing can hurt you. And I promise, you'll like the results." Ing myself for the day ahead. We left the apartment together, stepping into the crisp morning air. Every step in the heels was a careful negotiation, my body still adjusting to the changes. Passers-by gave polite glances, some appreciative, some curious. I felt exposed, vulnerable, yet undeniably empowered. Each look seemed to affirm what Isabella had told me. I was beautiful, captivating, perfect. Our first stop was a small cafe where Isabella claimed she had arranged a special meeting. I was unsure what that meant, but I trusted her. As we walked in, heads turned. Some people smiled, some whispered. My pulse quickened, and I felt the familiar thrill of being noticed, of being admired. But it was different now. This wasn't just playful exploration in private. This was reality. Inside, Isabella introduced me to a few of her friends, women who, she explained, were familiar with magical transformations and unconventional lifestyles. They complimented me warmly, examining my new appearance with curiosity and genuine interest. Their approval made me blush, and I realized how deeply I had longed for this recognition. Yet the excitement was short-lived. A man at the far corner of the cafe caught my eye, someone I knew from work. My heart stopped. Could he recognize me? Would he expose my secret? Panic surged through me. Isabella noticed the shift in my expression and squeezed my hand. "Relax," she whispered, but the tension in my chest only grew. The man looked at me directly, then glanced away, speaking quietly to a colleague. My breath hitched. Every instinct screamed at me to flee, to hide, to revert to the familiar Alex. But the spell had made that impossible. My body was hers now, publicly visible, undeniably feminine, and entirely out of my control. We left the cafe, my mind racing. Isabella suggested a shopping trip, claiming it would be a practice day for navigating the world in my new form. As we moved through the crowded streets, I felt eyes on me everywhere. Strangers whispered, some complimented, some stared. My heart pounded with every step. The heels pinched slightly, the dress shifted as I walked, and my new curves drew attention in ways I hadn't anticipated. Then came the first close call. A familiar voice called my name, my best friend from college. "Alex. Is that you?" I froze. My face burned. Isabella tugged me gently behind a display, and I barely managed a whispered, "Hide me." My friend's eyes scanned the crowd, confused, then they moved on. Relief flooded me, but it was mixed with a sharp pang of fear. The world was not ready for me. And yet, in that fear, I found an odd exhilaration, the thrill of being caught, of walking the edge between secrecy and exposure. Hours passed like this, a mixture of exhilaration and tension, each encounter a potential disaster, each compliment a test of confidence. Isabella's presence was a constant reassurance, yet it also reminded me that she had orchestrated this entire ordeal. Was it kindness, mischief, or a deeper, more possessive desire? By evening, we returned to the apartment, exhausted yet buzzing with adrenaline. I collapsed on the couch, heels removed, dress slightly rumpled, wig askew. Isabella knelt beside me, brushing a curl from my face. "You did amazing today," she said softly. "See? The world can't hurt you when you're like this." But the danger wasn't gone. My phone buzzed, a message from work. An urgent request for a meeting. Panic surged again. I was unrecognizable in every way, and now the corporate world demanded my attention. Isabella's eyes glinted with challenge. "Do you want to answer it?" she asked. I shook my head. The thought of stepping back into the old world, of being seen as Alex again, was terrifying. The spell had changed me, not just physically but emotionally. Every interaction today had reinforced my new identity, my new self. And yet, the pull of reality, the life I had before, my job, my reputation, was a shadow looming over my exhilaration. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. My heart lurched. Who could it be now? A neighbor? A delivery? Or someone who could expose me completely? Isabella moved to the door, but before she opened it, I saw the reflection in the hallway mirror, a fleeting glimpse of my two selves colliding. Alex, the man I had been, and the perfect girl I had become. The heels, the dress, the makeup, the delicate curves, they all screamed transformation. And yet, in that mirror, I still recognized the flicker of Alex beneath it all, unsure, vulnerable, and terrified. The door opened slowly. A figure stepped inside, someone unexpected. My blood ran cold as I realized the consequences of the day's events were about to escalate. And then it happened, the first real test of my identity. A phone rang loudly, startling everyone. My heart pounded as I fumbled for it, the heels threatening to betray my balance. Isabella's hand steadied me, but the tension in the room was palpable. Every second stretched into an eternity. Who had seen? Who had recognized? And most importantly, what would happen next? The story froze in that suspended moment. The knock at the door, my reflection in the mirror, the heels precariously under my feet, Isabella's watchful eyes, and the world outside waiting to confront me. One wrong move, and everything could unravel. The apartment was silent again, but the air felt thick, charged with tension I could almost taste. I stood near the mirror, adjusting the hem of the pastel dress, fingers trembling. The heels pinched, the wig slipped slightly, and every glance at my reflection reminded me of the transformation I could never undo. I was no longer Alex in the traditional sense. I was her perfect girl, Isabella's vision made flesh, and every instinct screamed both exhilaration and terror. Isabella stood nearby, leaning casually against the doorway, her arms crossed, eyes glinting with amusement. "You've handled today beautifully," she said softly. "But tomorrow is going to be even more revealing." I swallowed hard, feeling the knot of anxiety tighten in my chest. Tomorrow. The word alone carried an unbearable weight. The thought of facing the world like this again, friends, family, colleagues, made my pulse race and my stomach churn. And yet, beneath the fear, there was a flicker of anticipation, a dangerous thrill I couldn't deny. Just as I turned to reach for my phone, the doorbell rang. Sharp. Insistent. My stomach dropped. Panic coursed through me like electricity. Who could it be now? Another friend? A delivery? Or worse, a stranger who might see me like this and expose me? Isabella moved toward the door with a slow, deliberate grace. "Don't panic," she whispered, her fingers brushing lightly against my arm. But her smile, though calm, carried a hint of mischief, the same spark that had led me into this situation in the first place. I peered through the peephole and froze. My heart lurched. A familiar figure stood there, someone from work, a colleague who had seen me countless times in my old life. My mind raced. Did they recognize me? Could they possibly suspect what had happened? My pulse thundered in my ears, heels trembling beneath me. Should I open it? Isabella asked, voice soft but teasing. Before I could respond, another sound sliced through the tension, a soft giggle from the hallway. Lily, the friend who had always seemed to delight in mischief, now standing there like a wild card in this dangerous game. My throat went dry. She held a small, wrapped package in her hands, her grin wickedly playful. Thought you might need a little extra help, she said. I glanced at Isabella, whose expression flickered for just a moment. Was it concern, delight, or possessiveness? I couldn't tell. The room seemed to shrink around me, walls pressing in as my two worlds, the one I had known as Alex and the one I had stepped into as her perfect girl, collided violently. The knock on the door came again, louder this time. My body froze. Every instinct screamed to hide, to run, to strip away this identity and return to the safety of my old self. But the spell had anchored me. I couldn't go back. Not now. Not without consequences. My reflection in the hallway mirror caught my eye. The girl staring back at me was stunning, flawless, and utterly feminine. Every curve, every detail, was proof of the spell's success. Yet beneath the beauty, I could still see Alex, the nervous, cautious, unsure version of myself. Two identities, coexisting, one fragile and fearful, the other bold and captivating. Alex, Isabella's voice broke through my spiraling thoughts. She stepped closer, her hand resting lightly on my shoulder. You've come so far. Are you ready for what's next? Before I could answer, the door creaked open. The colleague stepped in, eyes widening as they took in my new appearance. Every heartbeat echoed like a drum. My hands shook, my knees threatened to buckle. The spell had made me perfect, undeniably feminine, but now, perfection felt like a trap. Exposure loomed, consequences dangling just out of reach. Lily's laugh rang out again, mischievous and unsettling. Oh, this is going to be fun, she whispered, leaning casually against the doorframe. Her presence was unpredictable, a reminder that the chaos she had sown was far from over. Isabella's grip on my arm tightened slightly, not in anger, but in a possessive reassurance. Remember, she murmured, no one can take her away from us. Not yet. The world outside the apartment suddenly felt enormous, threatening, full of judgment, curiosity, and danger. Every glance from the colleague, every subtle movement from Lily, every flicker in Isabella's eyes added layers to the tension that coiled inside me like a spring ready to snap. I took a shaky step backward, the heels making the motion precarious. The dress clung in ways that left me hyper-aware of every curve, every subtle motion. The wig had shifted slightly, a few strands brushing across my face. My pulse thundered. One wrong move, one misstep, and everything could unravel. The doorbell buzzed again, impossible, relentless. Another visitor? Another complication? My throat tightened, every nerve on edge. I glanced at Isabella, whose expression was unreadable now, part delight, part calculation. The room seemed to shrink further, the walls closing in. And then, a sudden, sharp knock from the balcony door. My heart skipped. How many people could possibly converge on this moment? The world, once distant, had intruded fully, and I was caught in the center, heels wobbling, dress pristine yet confining, wig slightly loose, body trembling with fear and anticipation. I looked at Isabella, her hand still resting on my shoulder, and felt the collision of emotions, desire, fear, excitement, uncertainty. Lily's grin lingered in the corner of my eye. The colleague at the door was frozen, unsure. And I realized, with a shiver of both exhilaration and terror, that the next few moments could change everything. Would I be discovered? Rejected? Embraced? Or trapped further in this identity I could no longer escape? The story paused in that suspended moment, the heels teetering, the dress shifting, the mirror reflecting two selves, Isabella's possessive gaze, Lily's mischievous smirk, the colleague frozen at the door, and the persistent knock from the balcony. Everything was on the edge. One breath. One step. One choice. And the world would never be the same.